I haven't seen very many videos about how to make sand scrapers, so I wanted to try to make one and document it, just for other people to see and see if they can improve on how to make them. I'm gonna go for a forge welded construction, and the actual blade itself isn't going to be one piece. The blade is going to be riveted onto a larger handle, like a large bar, and then you'll have a rivet on there with the blade on it. I've seen a couple of videos with designs like that, and also the design where it's just one big double-edged blade that people use to grind. Now, the whole thing that I'm thinking of with doing the smaller blade design is that when you're using a sand scraper, you're only using about that much of the blade anyways, so I don't really think it matters if you have a blade that's that long, because it's always curved, so you're just going to be using at most that much. So hopefully I can forge weld something together and make it successful. So just for a visual reference, what I'm talking about is that the two most common sand scraper designs that I've seen is a small bit that's, kind of rectangular, and it has the edges on each side, and then you have a hole punched in the center of it, and then a bar going all the way across with a hole as well. And then that bar has, it has a couple handles on it that you can hold on to, and then you have your edges there, and then you use that to kind of scrape off steel. And then the other design that I was talking about is when you have one really long blade like that kind of goes in, and then you have handles off to the side there, and then you have a big blade there and a big blade there. And I've seen that used quite a lot, and then you kind of use a flat sharpening stone to keep that geometry right. It's pretty much the same thing, except I'm pretty sure that this, of course, this uses much less steel, and it also seems like it's easier to make. Plus, it's going to be easier to get down the geometry for this, because usually the geometry looks a little something like this. So you have a hollow in the center, and then you have somewhat acute angles, and then two little flat spaces here that make contact with the sharpening stone. And then it goes up and around. Of course, it would be kind of symmetrical, but you can pretty much tell that it's like a chisel ground knife on both sides, but it's made of extremely hard steel. And I tried to make it out of just one solid piece of spring steel, and that was wrong for two reasons. First of all, it needs to be laminated, and second, it needs to actually be able to get extremely hard, like a file. So in my case, I'm going to be using a file for this. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about. This is going to be the mild steel piece that for one part of the blade, and then this old file is going to be the hardened steel edge for it. So what I'm hoping to do is just hacksaw off a little piece of this, put it on top of there so it's gonna kind of look like that, forge weld this together, and then I can hammer it out, kind of widen it, and punch a hole, and then I can heat treat it, and, well, of course, shape it, and then heat treat it, and add the handle. Now, what I'm about to do is put some water on the anvil and try to blow away the scale of the pieces that I want to forge weld and get the surface really smooth. When you use borax, it actually eats away a little bit of the forge scale, so if I make it extremely smooth and blow away most of the forge scale, then it should be ready to forge weld, and I don't have to do any filing. I'll see if it works. You know what, I think this steel is so rusted that I'll probably have to file it anyways. Yeah. I think I'm actually going to hot file it. Let's see here. This isn't going to be pretty. I think that'll work. This is a bit of borax. Kind of let it start bubbling up on that. So what I'm going to do is heat this piece up until the borax, starts melting and it looks good. Then I'll take a small pair of pliers, put this on top, and then I can forge weld it together, hopefully. So, you can see the flux is kind of vaporizing just a little bit. And I can put this on top. Kind of sticks a little bit, which is good. You can see this is kind of a little a little border there, but I think it'll be fine. Alright. See what happens. Ooh, that sounds good. Alright, I think it might be welded a little bit. I'm still going to reflux it and, do it a couple more times. I mean, I think it's like a little bit, probably like right in the center where I hammered it, but I'll need to get the sides too. I think that it welded. Pretty sure. Do a couple more heats. Alright. Weld's holding, it's looking pretty good. So, let's see here. I think I'll have to, once I grind it down, I'll have to grind down those 2 mild steel edges on either side. Now it's time to hot cut, and then I'm going to punch the hole, and then I'm going to hot cut the other side. Because if I hot cut both sides and I just have to hold on to this tiny piece of steel, it's going to go everywhere. I might even lose it in the well, it's kind of hard to lose it in the forge, but there's always a chance. So that's my plan. That wasn't a good sign there. Seemed like the pieces kind of fell off individually, but maybe that's just the very end. I'll cross my fingers. There we go. A nice hole. So you see it makes a nice kind of hourglass shape, and that's what I'm looking for. Now I think this is done with forging, so I'm going to normalize it a couple times, and then I'm going to grind it, and you know, when it's normalizing, I think I'll also make the metal handle for it too. So you can see I kind of put like a concave in it. So hopefully that will aid in creating that dish when I'm grinding. I made the handle for it, which has a hole punched in the center. So, you know, you can put a couple of wooden handles on it, and they're flat so they can't, you know, roll. And let's see, what is that? Oh, there it is. And then here's the blade piece. You can see that it kind of has that hollow, and then all I had to do was just put it on the belt sander like that, and it created the two flat surfaces, and I thinned these out, and the edge is, you know, good for quenching. So I was thinking to myself, would it be better to rivet this on first and then heat treat it, or to heat treat this first and then, you know, and then rivet this on? And one thing that I'm concerned about is that once this has been heat treated, if I try to rivet it on afterwards, then that rivet, the act of just hammering on it, will crack it. You know, it'll crack that hardened steel underneath. Now I know that the whole lamination process, this soft steel is supposed to capture some of that energy and shock. I think that I'll try to go the risky route and heat treat this first and then attach it afterwards. Yep, that's pretty hard. Okay, so now I'm going to temper this back. I mean, I don't want to bring it to a straw yellow because I might lose a lot of hardness. I'm not sure. After a long period of frustration, I managed to rivet this on. I didn't make the rivet long enough, so it's kind of flush. And in order for it to not turn any, I took some wire, wrapped it around kind of that like crack inside, and then twisted it at this end. So now what I'm going to do is take it to the belt sander and kind of get that flat set up, and then get the edges kind of set up separately, and hopefully try it out on some steel in the end. I hope this works. If it does, then I'll be using this a lot. Okay, so now I have my sin scraper all riveted and solid, so now it's time to sharpen it. Alright, let's see what it does. This is an old wrought iron. This is an old wrought iron piece from, I think it was a wrought iron strut from a water tower. It was like a really old water tower. Well, let's see how this works. Oh yeah. It's a bit chattery, but I think kind of hold it to the side to stop that. Although this edge, there's something wrong with it. I think it's not quite flat on the bottom, so I wasn't able to get it perfectly sharp, but I mean, it still works a little bit. I think it's better like for larger swaths. Yeah, see, that other side works much better. there's still some room for improvement. I think something about the handles being higher than the blade does something. I think if I just kind of turn these handles down, it will lower that center, or that rotation. You know, there's like a lot of rotation when I'm doing this. So I think that just twisting it a bit will help. Anyways, that's it. Just have to put the wooden handles on, but that's kind of self-explanatory. You could even wrap these if you wanted to, like put a cord wrap around them.